Whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect. But the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. The only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters. So there's this bumper sticker we've all seen that says, shift happens, right? You've seen that. And it's such an apt statement. I mean, obviously it's somewhat of a colloquialism, but it speaks an absolute truth, does it not? It just happens. We can plan all we want. Yeah? We have, what's that expression, the best laid plans of mice and men, right? Not always the way it works out. So do you recall when some major paradigm shifted for you? Something that rocked your world, that your belief system, how you thought it would be, could be, would always be, and never really anticipated something like this happening. Do you remember how you reacted when you first heard that the earth was flat, for example? Oh. Don't use that one in the second service. Or when you discovered that the sun didn't revolve around the earth. Okay. I got one more. Or that life doesn't revolve around you. Let me underline that one. So apparently it does revolve around you, I guess. Would you agree? Would you agree? Would you agree that we live in a time of change and uncertainty? Yes. Okay. Now we're tracking together here. Whew, boy. The paradox is this statement that you've heard over and over again: is the only thing that is certain in life is change. I mean, that's a paradoxical statement in itself. Certainty is change. Well, if that's true, that certainly doesn't offer us much comfort, does it? You and I are spiritual beings. We say that all the time, and yet that's not the problem. That truth has never caused us any suffering. But what has caused us to suffer is when we are not identified with who we really are. And we're identified with this, whatever you want to call it, human self, egoic self, this self that feels separate from life, from wholeness, from the hidden wholeness, from the perfection of life that is, we say spiritually, is always present, that there is a perfection in the apparent imperfection. And when I'm identified with the imperfection of life, when I'm identified with those things that go bump in the night, those changes that are constantly upending my expectations for how life should look, when I'm identified with the trajectory of circumstances, the winds of fortune and misfortune that blow through life, when I'm identified with that, then I am a candidate for suffering, right? That's when we feel the pain of change. And so our work as spiritual beings, having this human experience and remembering that it's, by the way, not the other way around, we oftentimes, it seems more apt that we're human beings having a spiritual experience. But it's the context for how we hold life that really is the most important thing we can do until we get to the awakening, until we get to the actual knowing of the truth. And so just knowing that when we just say these things, that you are a spiritual being, you are made in the image and likeness of God, you are this wholeness, this essentially who you are and what you are. And when you're living life from that knowing place, then you have a much better chance of withstanding the changes that come through. Because then you're not sitting on the surface of life and its circumstances, like a piece of wood sitting on the top of the ocean, subject to all of the waves of change and the winds of change. But you're grounded as part of the ocean itself, which has a depth to it, which has, in its depth, has a stillness to it, which is unaffected by the changes that are happening on the surface of life. So I want to bring this series to you because this is not just a one Sunday message, is it? Because we know that your whole life has been about change, about embracing change, has it not? And we want to get better at it, don't we? I do. And getting better at it doesn't mean that necessarily you become a shapeshifter. Although, that's sort of fun too, the manifestation aspect of life. But I think what's more useful in the long run, and since you're an eternal being, wouldn't you be interested in the long run? And not just, even this particular lifetime. But what would you want to know? What would you want to be grounded in? What would you want to be your sense of being, knowing that life is going to take a turn and a twist along the way? It's guaranteed. It is the very nature of the phenomenal world to shift. Yeah? Do we know this? How has it ever not been true? It's never not been true. It's always been the case. And so when we get more mature about this, which I'm still growing up, then we begin to see changes. Oh, yeah, of course. Of course it's going to shift. It's not going to stay the same. It's going to become something else. And that's actually the evolutionary impulse that's imbued in every one of us as part of the natural evolution of life. It can't stay the same. We can't stop. We can't stop this evolutionary impulse, which is pushing life to be more of itself in you, even as you, which necessarily involves change and shift. Because shift is going to happen because of what you are, because you are connected to this life, and this life will not be contained. It can't be. It doesn't end when a circumstance ends. It doesn't end even when a life ends. We trust in something eternal. We trust in something which has its onward flow, and that when we're in the river of that flow of life, then we don't feel thrown off so much by the circumstances that shift. We feel like it's more part of us. We are part of the change. In some ways, we have joined forces with the universal force that is moving us to the next level, to the next awareness, to the next opportunity, to a new way of seeing, to a new way of being. When seen from that we are part of this change energy, then we don't feel that life is against us. Does that make sense? That we don't feel that life is against us when we feel that we are inseparable from life itself. That we're on this journey of movement. We're on this journey of growth. We signed up for it. And we didn't even sign up for it in a dualistic sense. We are it. And now we have to bring conscious awareness to what we said yes to as spiritual beings, to join with life, to join with it, to see the rises and the falls, the ups and the downs, the here and gones as all part of a whole, not as something that sits apart from the divine design. I hope you can hear this today. It's not an easy message, but it's the context that I wanted to start with you. And see if anyone comes back next week. I'll have more to say. Because what is it that, let's get down to it. Can I talk to you just humanly for a minute? Will you open to that? I'm going to get really honest with you, okay? Most of the time, what we want is to be able to predict and control life. Is that not true? I mean, just be honest, right? I mean, when you wake up in the morning, isn't usually the first thing you think of is your biggest problem and how you're going to manage it? I know you're all being really spiritual right now, but most of us, our biggest, usually shortly after we become consciously awake, we begin to sort of wrestle with the day, this, what's up today? What am I facing today? What am I going to have to deal with today? And the part of us that feels separate from life is like in strategy mode. How am I going to control this? How am I going to keep this from being any worse than it is? How can I make it better? Or can I predict what might be coming down the road so I can do some sort of, what's that word? Preemptive. Yeah. What did you say?
Damage control.
Damage control, yeah. So there's a preemptive, like a preemptive strike, like, oh, I'm gonna not go down that street anymore, that one. Or, I'm gonna try to make it not so bad. That's a damage control. That's the way this surface mind thinks. And it's okay as far as it goes, but guess what? It doesn't go far enough. Because does that ever really bring you any peace if all of your energy has to go to controlling life in order for you to be okay? And I know Dr. Gary Simmons last Sunday, if you were here, had that very message for you, is that how you're being with what you're having determines your experience of life. And the part of us that feels separate from life thinks it's all about what is happening to us determines how well we're doing with life. But that, again, that makes us subject to the vagaries of life, yeah? And we don't want to be subject to the vagaries of life. We want to be in the driver's seat of consciousness, the driver's seat of wholeness, the driver's seat of being able to be okay with life, with all of its ups and downs and changes. Am I speaking to anyone here that resonates with anything I'm saying? Okay, just say, yay, amen. Amen. I'm not singing that right. Anyway. So I just want to make sure, because I hate it when I'm just telling my own story up here, and then people go, why didn't you talk to me? But I think I might be talking to a few of us, which is good. So we understand this thing about predicting and controlling, but that's a default that comes from not being aware of something greater and grander in us. And that's why we do the spiritual work. That's why we get quiet and we drop down into this place where we recognize that there is a depth to us. There is a quality of our own being that does not need life to be a certain way. Have you touched that peace inside of you? Every day we should take time to touch into that peace, to experience that well of well-being. Because then that can be the touchstone for our day. That even when life shifts, which it will, when he says what he says, or when she does what she does, or when he doesn't call, or she calls too much, or whatever the case may be, all those things that trigger us in life, if we are not rooted in this sense of wholeness, then we are tossed about. And that's not why we came to this life. We didn't come here to learn how to control life. We came here to learn how to be life, to let life be in its expression through us. Eckhart Tolle has a quote, and I'm loosely saying this now, but it's to the effect that instead of asking what we want out of life, we ask what life wants out of us. What does life want out of us? Because that is the big question that can really lead us to be in the flow of life, yeah? Where we understand that there is this impulse towards greater expression of who I am. That's what life wants out of us. And that's what it's always asking of me. It's in every moment it's saying, what would life do here? What would love do here? What would wholeness do here? And recognizing that as that which is at the core of my purpose for being, that French word, whatever that was, raison d'être. That's why I'm here. That's what it's all about. It's not the hokey pokey, by God. So paradigm shifting is happening. It's happening in our world. It's happening in science. It's happened in science some time ago, and we're just now even trying to understand reality, because the paradigm has has shifted. You know what I'm saying is, we used to think that there was this objective reality out there that existed independent of us, of our observation of it, that there was something fixed, and then we bring observation to it, and then we become an observer of that which is objectively real. But the quantum science has just turned that whole theory on its head and says that there is no such thing as objective reality, that it's all subject to our perception, that what is observed is affected by the observer. In fact, some people have gone so far as to say that the fact that it's affected by the observer means that the observer even creates what is observed. So we can see that as having wonderful applications for how we make this shift in consciousness, yes? Because if we've always been looking at life and its changes as something that we needed to predict and control, and we hold on to that, then we're going to continue to get life that needs to be a certain way for us to be okay. Is that right? Is that accurate? But if we begin to see that how we look at life will end up affecting our experience of life, or how it appears to us, then we can see that we can join with this quantum field of possibility of seeing that we can look at life as an opportunity for us to evoke more of who we have come here to be more aligned with the presence and the power and the love of God, to say that is the lens, or that is the context through which I want to see my life. And then knowing that by law, that what we look at then is going to change by how we see it. Bless you. So this is a huge opportunity for us in this life. To take what science is now revealing as being, what the mystics have held all along, is that we have this power, this perceptual power, in which how we look at things changes our experience and makes our experience into a mirror unto how we see. So let us take this great gift that we have, this power of who and what we are that's been given to us, and let that be the context for us holding the changes in our life. And sometimes it's just a matter of just remembering in a moment. And I'm not making this sound like it's some glib little step process where you can just do it. But it's something that sort of begins where you back up every time you begin to react to how life is, and realize that some part of you is feeling angst or diminished by life's changes, is to stop in that moment and do a quick prayer, that I am one with the one. Whatever is true is eternal, cannot be changed. Spirit is unalterable because it is already perfect. The mind can elect what it chooses to serve. The only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve two masters. So we're either, hostage to the ego or host to God, as it says in A Course in Miracles. We're either aligned with the one presence and the one power and feeling the freedom of that experience and still seeing the changes and feeling them sensory. There's still perceptions, there's still sensations in the body. There's even feelings, there's sadness, there's bliss. All that's going on, but there's some context for that you are behind that, the real you, is behind that. That's what our spiritual practice can do. It can give us a larger context with which to observe the changes of life, in which we have a sense that this me, this essential self that I am, is not affected. And then I can withstand these changes because it doesn't touch my soul. It may touch my body. It may certainly touch my relationships, my economics, my career, but it doesn't touch what God created. Nothing real can be threatened, it says in A Course in Miracles, and nothing unreal exists. Therein lies the peace of God. I will have more to say in future weeks. I'm going to talk about endings. We'll talk about beginnings. Talk about the time in the wilderness between, you've left Egypt and you haven't found the promised land, that kind of thing. But we're going to really explore this because I know every one of you. I don't even know everything about you, but I know one thing for sure, that 6 months from now, a year from now, for sure, life will look very different to you. And if we are equipped to navigate these changes with a sense of the infinite, the sense of love and peace, grounded in that, then we can withstand these changes. Yeah? And we have an election coming up too. Oh, leave that one in? Okay. And there's all kinds of sort of, oh, what if this happens? Oh, what if that happens? Well, God doesn't care. And the infinite sense of being is what brings us wise guidance in times like this, how to respond to all the difficult things in life. And then we make better decisions together as a community. We make better decisions in our personal life when we're coming from our wholeness. And that's what I want for myself. And I trust that some of you will want that for yourself as well. So that's it for today. Thanks for being with me and editing my jokes.